Hey, Sonny here, and today I'm going to be talking about Bake no Hana, its related event and all of the symbolism and themes behind it. Does anyone else hear those ominous bells? Okay, yes, many a meme was made of this image. Like, I'm pretty sure everyone and their mother has seen this image of Mizuki by now. It went absolutely viral. Just look at how many views and interactions the announcement tweet has. Despite all of the memes though, the event itself is actually pretty serious, and while I will try to keep the tone of this video light, this event and song do cover some very heavy topics, so please mind the content warnings and feel free to click away if you're not up for it. I also just wanted to quickly mention at the start here that this video isn't going to be diving into Mizuki's gender identity. There are already a lot of great videos on that topic, and as a cis person, I don't feel like it's my place to analyze that aspect of Mizuki's character. I read Mizuki as being a trans girl, so that's how I'll be referring to her, and this should go without saying, but any transphobia or NB-phobia in the comments will not be tolerated. Okay, so with that said, let's get into it, shall we? Bake no Hana is a song by Nakiso that was commissioned for the Mizuki Focus event, Where Does the Path of Thorns Lead To? Before Bake no Hana, only one of Nakiso's songs was already in the game, Dokuzu, which received a Sekai version by Miku, Mafuyu, and Ena. Nakiso usually uses either Miku or Kaiyuki, and the best way I can describe his musical style is hauntingly beautiful. While the vocals are that of a cute girl, the instrumentals are usually edgy and aggressive, and this dichotomy creates a really unsettling atmosphere. Nakiso got into Vocaloid during his first year of middle school because he was obsessed with Kagepro. And as someone who is still obsessed with Kagepro to this day, taste.
それはちなみに中1の頃は初音ミクなんで買ったの？
もうその頃は、その影プロにめちゃめちゃハマってまして。それで、もうどうしても欲しくて、その親に、確か、数学のテスト100点を取れたら、初音ミクを買ってほしいっていうのを。
うわ、そんな、普通ゲームとかじゃん。そう。初音ミク買ってくれってめっちゃすごいね。あ、センスあるな。マジか。
それでめちゃめちゃテスト頑張って100点取って買ってもらったっていう記憶がありますね。
While Nakiso first tried making songs with lots of guitar like Jin, his style eventually shifted into the darker one that he's known for today. And he has named Billie Eilish, Hiragi Kirai, and Shudo as some of his inspirations for this shift in style. Nakiso tends to make short songs, rarely ever exceeding 3 minutes, and he has said that this is simply because he isn't good at making longer songs. Apart from making music, Nakiso also enjoys rhythm games, especially arcade ones like Tunithm. And back in June 2022, on Shudo's radio show, he said this. Well, I guess a Proseka employee saw that episode, because not long after, Nakiso's wish to write a song for Proseka was granted. And I can't stress enough how perfect of a choice he was for this event, but I'll talk more about that a bit later. Now, this is where I'd usually jump right into the event story recap, but because this event is the culmination of so many others, I need to talk about a couple of other things first. I promise that all of this context will be relevant, but if you're just here for the Mizu 5 deep dive, feel free to skip ahead to that chapter on the video. So first, we need to head all the way back to the beginning. Keitai Renwa is a song by Mafu Mafu, which was commissioned for Proseka and added during the release celebration campaign. This song is an anomaly in many ways, as it's a commission song but wasn't used for a unit's theme song or an event. As of recording, there is still no full-length 2D MV for the Sekai version. It didn't have a Vocaloid version for 2 whole years, and to this day, Mizuki still doesn't have an alt vocal for it. Poor Ena has been left on red for so long. While there has been no official confirmation from Colourful Palette themselves on this, it's speculated that Keitai Renwa was originally written to be Night Court's theme song. Mafu has said on a Twitcast that before he wrote Kuyama to Kaite Mirai, he submitted a different song that he thought fit Night Court's vibe. Whilst Mafu doesn't actually name Keitai Renwa, it's pretty easy to assume that it would be the song he's talking about. But it must not have been quite what Colour Palette were expecting, because they asked Mafu if he could write them another song, this time with a darker tone. They wanted that raw, unfiltered edge. So why am I talking about this? Did I just want an excuse to talk about a Mafu Mafu song? Maybe, but I do have a point, I swear. Since Keitai Renwa is still here and in the game, it appears that the song was repurposed to be something akin to Mizuki and Ena's theme song. And when sung by Mizu Ena, the song suddenly becomes extremely sapphic. Keitai Renwa is a song about a relationship where one person has fallen out of love, whilst the other is still in love and desperate to connect, desperate to keep their relationship alive. The song is also a sequel to an older Mafu song called Heart no Ato Aji. And this is just my interpretation, but I've always interpreted this song as Mafu using the phones to represent the red thread of fate. If you aren't aware of the concept, the red thread of fate originates from Chinese mythology, in which it's said that you're tied to your soulmate by an invisible red thread. This thread may stretch or tangle, but it will never break. Whoever is tied to the other end of that thread is somebody that you're destined to meet, and is somebody that you share an unbreakable bond with. Except, in the context of Keitei Renwa, these two aren't connected by a thread, but instead by their phones, and unlike the red thread, which cannot be cut, a phone call can easily be hung up, a text easily ignored. Their relationship can easily be severed. This thread imagery can be seen in both the Proseka MV and the MV on Mafu's channel. In the Proseka MV, there are 3 threads to represent each of the characters, while on Mafu's channel, there are 2 threads, one red and one blue. Point is, this song right here is where we are first introduced to the concept of the red thread of fate being associated with Mizuki and Ena. And it's not just the red thread either. Threads and connections are a big theme for Mizuki in general. The red thread of fate is most commonly used to represent romantic relationships, but shipping potential aside, I think that the red thread is used between Mizuki and Ena to represent a fated meeting in a more general sense. Like, these two are meant to meet, and no matter how tangled or taut their friendship gets, it will never break, and they will always find one another again in the end. Kamiko Festival is a shuffle event that focuses on Mizuki attending her school's festival. In this story, we can see Mizuki attempt to distance herself from her friends, not wanting to intrude when they're hanging out with their other friends. As Mizuki walks around the festival, she starts to imagine what it would be like if the rest of Night Court attended it with her. This story is also where we are first introduced to the history between Mizuki and Rui, and we see how they became unlikely friends by running into each other on the school's rooftop. Rui is a very important friend to Mizuki, and from this point onwards, he is always present in one way or another in Mizuki's journey to sharing her secret with Night Court, and he's always happy to support her whenever she needs it. We love a supportive king! The event story ends with Mizuki on that same lonely rooftop that she met Rui on, but this time they are both surrounded by friends, and we can see Mizuki wearing a nostalgic smile on her face, happy that she's no longer all alone. In Mizuki's 4-star card story, she tells the rest of Night Court about the festival and how she wished they could have been there, and the 4 of them agree to attend the festival together next year. Since this is a shuffle event, there was no associated song, but I do want to point out one thing on Mizuki's trained card. And that's the fact that she's holding a red ribbon in one hand and scissors in the other. Is she going to cut these newfound connections, or not? Secret Distance was Mizuki's very first focus event. Kanade is in a creative slump, and after being inspired by the haunted house at her school's festival, Mizuki invites the rest of Night Court along for a test of courage, and they basically just go ghost hunting. This event is also when Meiko first spawns in the Sekai. She is distant and tells the others that she is simply there to observe. The person who Meiko is the most interested in observing is Mizuki. The 3 ghost stories that Mizuki tells in this story relate to the members of Night Court. Kanade being the girl in the tunnel, Mafuyu the girl who played the piano, and Mizuki and Ena being the ones who were cursed to one day be separated. Mafuyu ends up going missing and is found beneath a large cherry blossom tree that's in full bloom. The 4 of them admire the blossoms and remark on how beautiful they are, Mizuki remembering how she once thought that the flowers weren't very pretty, but now that she's with her friends, they look all the more beautiful. Cherry blossoms are another one of Mizuki's motifs, as well as just flowers in general. In Japan, cherry blossoms bloom right around when the school year ends, so they are commonly used to represent meetings and farewells, as well as endings and new beginnings. Their short blooming period serves as a reminder that every beginning has an end, and that life itself is beautiful yet fleeting. When Mizuki goes to say that they should come back to see the cherry blossoms again next year, the words catch in her throat, and she can't say them. And it's here that she realizes if she wants to truly be herself around Night Court, and truly be able to call herself their friend, then eventually she will have to come out to them about herself. We see Mizuki looking conflicted as the rest of the girls nap on the train ride home, Ena being the only one that notices her friend's sad expression. Secret Distance marks the beginning of Mizuki and Ena's arc. ID Smile is a song by Toa, and was the commissioned song for Secret Distance. This song is beautiful and very clearly portrays Mizuki's conflict of wanting to be closer to her friends, but also wanting to fall back into putting up that wall and distancing herself from them. Mizuki's coping mechanism is escapism, and when things get tough, her solution is always to run away. Keeping her distance from other people has become Mizuki's way of protecting herself from getting hurt, because if she was never that close to someone to begin with, it won't matter if they eventually drift away or if they react badly to her being trans. Due to so many bad past experiences, Mizuki has become a lot more protective about her identity and won't share it unless she has to. But Night Court are different. Mizuki wants to be closer to them and be able to truly be herself around them, but that desire only makes Mizuki all the more scared of how coming out would affect their friendship. Throughout this MV, Mizuki purposely keeps her distance from the rest of Night Court, dancing off to the side by herself. During this last chorus, Mizuki finally joins the rest of Night Court and dances with them, but her expression is strained, and I wonder if this sequence is supposed to be like a dream. Mizuki wants to be able to dance beside them, but she doesn't know if she'll always be able to. Next, we have the 2D MV, which was released almost 2 years after the 3D MV. This MV is cute and bright and suits the song, but slowly, some things begin to change. The room they're standing in becomes messier as chairs and mannequins are seen laying on the floor behind them. And this is most prominent during the last chorus, where we can see through the mirrors that the once beautiful room is now dark and ruined, culminating in a mirror breaking right at the end of the song. Sound familiar? Yeah, let's put a pin in this. Now let's take a look at the Secret Distance event cards, specifically Ena and Mizuki's. Sorry Kanade and Mafuyu, this video isn't really about you guys. This gacha is called the Secret Dressing Room. So here we see Mizuki alone in a dressing room that's filled to the brim with her favourite things. But she's all alone. She wears a pensive expression and appears to be deep in thought about something. Her dress appears to be incomplete, with a bare hoop skirt sticking out prominently, and a noticeably blue bow adorns her waist. Side note, but this outfit is legit just a trans flag, and it's not the only instance of trans flag imagery being associated with Mizuki either. Like, they're not exactly subtle about this. Next we have Ena, who we can see is trying to peek into this secret dressing room. Her expression is curious, but hesitant, unsure if she's allowed to look behind this curtain or not. On the floor, we can see a distinctly red ribbon, a ribbon that leads to Mizuki. Meiko's holding this same red ribbon in her card, as if she's the one who placed it there for Ena to follow. Also, I only noticed this while staring at all of these cards again, and it might just be me losing my mind, but doesn't this collar on the mannequin behind Meiko look awfully familiar? My Footprint's Your Destination, or What Lies Behind What Lies Ahead on the English server for some reason, was Mizuki's second focus event and another very important step for Ena and Mizuki's relationship. In this event, Mizuki comes to realize just how afraid she is of Night Court finding out about her gender identity, despite not having cared about telling people in the past. When Ena harmlessly asks An about what Mizuki is like at school, Mizuki panics and becomes acutely aware of how possible it would be for her classmates to out her. An, of course, would never do this though and answers Ena's question normally. Later at home, Mizuki reflects on what happened, still torn between whether she should come out to Night Court or not, since it's not like she has to tell them, but at the same time, the guilt of not being honest with her closest friends is eating away at her, and she feels as though she's deceiving them. And so, Mizuki comes to the conclusion that thinking about it is pointless, since the secret will come out eventually, and when that happens, she convinces herself that their friendship will be over. So if it's all going to come to an end either way, Mizuki should just enjoy herself while she still can, right? Then we see Mizuki continuing to spiral as she forces herself to be even more upbeat and fun than usual, but it's all just an act. Ena notices this and tries to get Mizuki to open up about what's troubling her, but Mizuki coldly rejects Ena and runs back home. We then see Mizuki alone on the school roof once more, as she thinks to herself, wouldn't it just be easier if everyone else disappeared? Ena runs up the stairs, exclaiming that she's been looking everywhere for Mizuki and trying to contact her to no avail. Ena reaffirms that she just wants Mizuki to talk to her. Ever since they went on that ghost hunting trip together and she saw Mizuki making that sad expression, she's wanted to help her somehow. Because they're friends, and that's what friends do. They support each other. Mizuki is shocked to hear Ena call her a friend, and she clutches at her heart, overcome with joy to hear that Ena considers her that. Ena tells Mizuki that she's willing to wait for as long as it takes. She'll wait patiently until Mizuki is ready to open up to her. And Mizuki of course wants to answer Ena's resolve. She wants to talk to her friend and truly open up to her, but this damn girl who said henna no, I swear. People rightfully clown on transphobic students A and C, but whoever this girl is that told Mizuki she's weird might just be the root of all of her trauma. Like, screw henna no girl. Do you know how many times she's the one that pops up as a flashback? It's always henna no girl. Anyways, due to her past experiences of people turning on her after she comes out, Mizuki still isn't ready to tell Ena, but she promises Ena that when she's ready, whenever that day may be, she'll tell her. Ena accepts this and smiles, but Mizuki lied. Because Ena said that she'll be there as long as it takes for Mizuki to talk to her, Mizuki ended up thinking that, in that case, if she just never says a word, then they'll stay together forever, even though she knows that that's unfair to her friends.
いっそ僕の代わりに 誰かが全部話してくれたらいいのに。じゃあ行ってくるから。水木。何？また夜にね。またナイトコードでね。ごめんね、エナ。
And that's how the event ends. And you probably already know why I've highlighted that clip specifically. Lower, or Lower One's Eyes, is a song by Nuyuri and was the commissioned song for My Footprints, Your Destination. Lower is similar to ID Smile in that it's about how Mizuki is unsure of how much longer she'll be able to stay with Night Court. But the difference is that Lower is more desperate in its delivery. Mizuki wants to stay, but having to hide this secret from them is hurting her. Another difference is that this time Ena is right there singing along with Mizuki, both of them praying that they'll be able to find one another again, no matter how many times they're separated. And as much as I'd love to gush about Lower and how the Vocaloid MV is based on what's essentially Bible fanfiction, the song itself sadly isn't too relevant to this video. On the other hand, the card set is relevant, and this card set is themed around tarot cards. Mizuki is the reversed hermit, while Ena is the upright hermit. The upright hermit can refer to a need for some soul searching, and looking within yourself to determine where your next steps are to be taken. As for the reversed hermit, I'm just going to read out an excerpt from biddytarot.com because it describes Ena and Mizuki's situation perfectly. If you have already been spending a lot of time reflecting on your inner self, then the hermit reversed may suggest that you may be taking this isolation thing too far. Are you becoming a literal hermit and cutting yourself off from others? Do not underestimate the value of staying connected with others, even while you are going through your spiritual journey. Be mindful too of other people's needs. You do not want to become so absorbed in yourself and your personal dilemmas that you shut out your family and friends. In a relationship reading, the hermit reversed can indicate unwelcome isolation. For example, one person may want to be alone or withdraw from the relationship while the other wants to deepen the connection. You will need to respect each other's request for space, but also be there to support as appropriate. Now, looking at the actual cards themselves, Mizuki has clearly walked far into this forest, snow heavily falling around her, her lantern not even lit as she continues to tread deeper. Ena, on the other hand, is only on the forest's edge. Her lantern is brightly lit as she looks around, searching for the way that Mizuki went, prepared to take the journey ahead. A red, well, it's more of a purple, but for the sake of my essay, let's call it red. This red ribbon points the way that she needs to go, and we can see the other end of this ribbon on Mizuki's card. And it's not doing too well, representing just how jumbled up and conflicting Mizuki's feelings are. But as we already know, no matter how taut or tangled the red thread of fate gets, it will not break. On the other side of Mizuki's card is a chain, indicating just how guarded she is. And because I'm a flower meanings nerd, I want to mention the two flowers on these cards as well. Ena has a Duranta, which can mean watching over you. And the flowers on Mizuki's card were harder to identify, but I think it's most likely a Kaluna, which is a type of heather, and in flower language it means to set off on a journey. Lastly, I want to quickly mention Mizuki and Ena's Colorfest cards. These two cards released at the same time in the same gacha. In Mizuki's card story, she is transported to her own fragment sekai, which manifests as a sprawling shopping center with boutique after boutique filled with all of her favorite clothes and accessories. A paradise just for her where she can try on anything she wants without the judgment of any onlookers. And yet, Mizuki's mind still drifts to what it would be like shopping there with the rest of Night Court. And then it dawns on her that even though she's in her own little paradise, it's lonely not being able to share it with her friends. And so she decides to return to reality. So remember how she said just before that things would be easier if everyone just disappeared? Yeah, that isn't true. In Ena's card story, her fragment sekai manifests as an atelier filled with paintings and drawings that she never finished, either due to getting too frustrated with them or throwing them out entirely. Ena decides to complete these paintings, which shows how far she's come and how much stronger she is mentally now. And one of these paintings that she completes is of a person in the ocean reaching up from beneath the water's surface. And Ena is describing herself here as she decides what she wants this painting to express, but this description is also very similar to this Mizuki card, but I'll get into that a little more later. And I know that this video is mostly just focusing on Mizuki because these are her focus events, but Night Court are just as important to Ena as they are to Mizuki. Before Ena met Night Court, she was in a really rough spot as well, and had basically given up on everything. And she found a place that she belongs within Nightcod as well, because Nightcod is a place where her art, and by extension Enna herself, is needed, and Enna finds comfort from that. While it's not the exact same, Enna has also had part of herself denied as she was growing up. Like, it wasn't as personal as her literal identity, but no one was recognizing Enna's artwork, and she only found that within Nightcod. And now because of that, she is more confident in herself and her artwork. Okay, so to recap. In Kamiko Festival, Mizuki wonders what attending her school festival with Nightcod would be like. In Secret Distance, Mizuki realizes she'd like to be closer to her friends, and that means she'll have to come out to them one day. In My Footprints, Your Destination, on the school's rooftop, Enna promises Mizuki that she'll wait for whenever Mizuki is ready to talk to her about whatever is troubling her. Nightcod are all important friends to Mizuki, and when she's hanging out with them, she feels as though she can truly be herself. She has finally found the place where she feels as though she belongs. Mizuki is very uncomfortable about the idea of Nightcod encountering any of her current or previous classmates, since her classmates already know about her transition and Mizuki doesn't want to be outed by them. Mizuki is scared to come out to Nightcod since she doesn't know how it will affect their friendship. Mizuki's coping mechanism is escapism, and she believes that when things get too tough for you to bear, it's okay to run away. But that doesn't mean you should always keep running, since you won't be able to solve any of your problems that way. And lastly, Red Thread of Fate imagery is commonly associated with Enna and Mizuki. Now that we've gotten through all of the context, let's get into the main event. Where does the Path of Thorns lead to? Well, we're about to find out. The event story starts with Mizuki thinking to herself in her room. In the Nightcod event prior to this one, Mafuyu decided to open up to her dad about what happened between her and her mother, and she told him that she doesn't want to become a doctor. Mafuyu had to muster up a lot of courage to talk to her dad about this, and she was afraid that he wouldn't accept her wishes. And the main person who encouraged Mafuyu to open up to him was Mizuki. Mizuki relates to Mafuyu since both of them are used to having to hide their true selves from others. So seeing Mafuyu take that step forwards and be accepted by her dad makes Mizuki want to do the same. She thinks back to the promise that she made with Enna on the school's rooftop and decides that it's time. She wants to talk to her. But just as Mizuki's about to message Enna, guess who makes yet another appearance? Yep, it's Hennano girl. But Mizuki doesn't want to run away from this anymore and pushes herself to start typing. However, her hands keep shaking and all of the awful things that people have said to her in the past keep replaying in her head.
そうなんだね。あいつ扱いに困るよな。
あれってキャラ作りでしょ？
目立ちたいだけなんじゃない？
違う。ただ、僕は。ただの勘違いかもしれないでしょ。なんか大変だね。
若い時ってそう思い込む時期があるらしいね。
Mizuki reaffirms to herself that her friends wouldn't reject her. They wouldn't. But Mizuki still can't bring herself to press send. Cut to the Sekai and Nightcod are meeting up to listen to their new demo. After finishing up their discussion, Kanade asks why the Sekai smells like a food stall today, and the source is revealed to be Enna. Enna has decided to help out with her class's fried squid stall at the school festival, and this revelation shocks Mizuki as it means that Enna will be attending the festival this year. And it's Kaito who notices Mizuki's strange reaction here. Mizuki worries about Enna finding out her secret from her classmates yet again, but Mizuki realizes that she doesn't want Enna to find out that way, which means that she just has to tell her herself. And so Mizuki decides that if Enna comes to the festival, Mizuki will come out to her on her own terms, in her own words, from her own mouth. After Nightcod leave the Sekai, Kaito confronts Meiko and asks her what's up with Mizuki. Meiko says that she doesn't know the details, but she thinks that Mizuki is ready to face her troubles and stop running from them. Kaito presses for more information on what exactly Mizuki's troubles are, but Meiko says that it isn't for her to say, which pisses Kaito off and he decides to go and ask Mizuki himself. Meiko stops him though, and we get this spicy CG of them arguing. Tired of Meiko's inaction, Kaito ignores her warnings and goes off to see Mizuki anyways.
Oi.
POV angry Kaito appears from your phone. What do you do? Kaito pops out of Mizuki's phone and is about to ask what she's so worried about, but he can't say anything further as Meiko appears and basically tells him to stay the hell out of it. So Kaito changes his approach and instead says to Mizuki that he knows she's stressing about something, and he says that it's up to her whether she chooses to progress forwards from it or not. but that in order to live and save herself, she'll need to choose the path that will alleviate the most of her anxiety. Mako joins in, offering some supportive words of her own to even out Kaito's harsh advice. Mizuki thanks the both of them, but says that she still needs more time to make a decision. The next day, Mizuki is at school helping her class prepare their escape room for the festival. She bumps into Rui in the hallway, and he can immediately tell that Mizuki is worried about something, and he asks her if she'd like to talk about it.
どうしたんだい水木
I really love how soft and supportive Rui is with Mizuki. Mizuki confides in Rui that she wants to tell her friends about herself, but she's scared, and so Rui asks what it is that she's most afraid of. Mizuki explains that while she is still a little scared of not being accepted, what she's most afraid of is instead how coming out to them will affect their current friendship dynamic. Mizuki doesn't want her friends to think that they have to accept her, and have to start walking on eggshells around her. Right now, the rest of Nightcod believe Mizuki to be a cis girl and treat her as such, but once she comes out, that might not be the case anymore. Basically, Mizuki doesn't want Nightcod to unconsciously start treating her differently, or feel like they have to be more accommodating for her.
頭では分かってるんだ。みんなはきっと僕を拒絶したりはしない。全部僕が気にしすぎてるだけで、すぐにルイたちみたいに何でもないことみたいに受け入れてくれるって思う。だけどもしも受け入れなくちゃって傷つけないようにしなきゃとか気をつけて話さなきゃとかそう思わせちゃったらそうなったって僕が思っちゃったら僕はきっと耐えられない。
Rui says that that's an understandable worry, and that while he can't erase Mizuki's fears, he will pray that her heart doesn't end up getting hurt. I've got bad news, Rui. I think you should have prayed a little harder. Back at home, Mizuki receives a message from Enna on Nightcod. Enna confirms that she'll be attending the school festival and asks if they should invite Kanade and Mafuyu too, since they seemed interested. So I guess Mizuki's Kamiko Festival card story just isn't canon? Mizuki agrees that they should invite the others, and that way they can all hang out together. And then Mizuki adds a few more messages.
高野祭の時に話せないかな。話したいんだ。今まで話せなかったことを全部。
After finally sending the message, Mizuki stares at her screen, realizing that this might be the final time she gets to hang out with Nightcod with the current dynamic that they have now. It's the day of the festival, and we see Kanade and Mafuyu meeting up with Mizuki. Enna arrives a little later, and her arrival alone causes Mizuki's anxiety to spike. But the comedic relief of Enna's class t-shirt quickly distracts her from things. And then they all start walking around the festival together.
それじゃあみんなでレッツゴー。今日は楽しもうね。
The first attraction that they stumble across is An's class, who have set up a photo booth. Enna says that they should take some photos since it'll make for a good memory. It's a crime that we never got to see the photos they took in there, by the way. Instead, we get Mafuyu eating a squid. Next, the four of them attend the play that Rui's class put together. And it's just as crazy of a show as the year before. I also love the fact that Mafuyu actually seemed to enjoy it. These two activities also line up with what Mizuki daydreamed about in the first Kamiko Festival event. Once they leave the theatre, Enna suggests they visit Mizuki's class next, and Mizuki falters for a moment before agreeing. Mizuki stresses as they approach her classroom, but settles once Toya is the one to greet them at the reception desk. The four of them enter the escape room with Mizuki acting as their guide. She explains the setting and that they have 15 minutes to escape the classroom. And so, Mafuyu, Enna and Kanade work together to solve all of the riddles in order to escape. With 3 minutes remaining, there's only a crossword puzzle and a key left to find. But instead of solving the puzzle, Enna skips right to trying to find the key, guessing where Mizuki would most likely have hidden it. But Enna chooses the wrong stuffed animal and they run out of time, losing the game. Except, Enna had actually been right, since Mizuki had originally planned to hide the key in that stuffed animal, but it was Toya who decided to move it to a different one. Mizuki smiles, happy that her friends know her so well and were able to solve all of the riddles she had made.
一緒にいるといつも自然と笑顔になれて、みんなといる時間はやっぱり僕にとって これからもずっとちゃんと一緒にいたい。だから。
We skip ahead to the end of the festival. Anna changes out of her fried squid shirt and Kanade and Mafuyu take their leave. And Mizuki tells them that there's something she'd like to talk about the next time they meet up. And then it's time.
もうすぐ高野菜だ。この時間はみんな校庭に行くから、話すならやっぱりあの場所にしよう。あの場所がいい。みんなとつながれた気がした。エナが待ってるって言ってくれた。あの場所が。エナ。屋上に行かない？
Mizuki and Anna make their way up to the school's rooftop, and Mizuki's heart starts beating uncomfortably in her chest. She feels sick, but she's determined not to run away anymore. She's ready to face this. Anna can tell that Mizuki is on edge, but she doesn't mention it and instead makes small talk.
大丈夫。きっとちゃんと話せて、それで。秋山さん。
And yep, there it is, the omen that everything is about to go horribly wrong. One of Mizuki's classmates calls for her in a hurry, asking if she can help find their teacher, since a partition in their classroom fell over and injured somebody. Mizuki apologizes to Anna and tells her to wait on the rooftop for her, saying that she'll be right back. Anna proceeds to the rooftop and is greeted by the sunset, waiting on that same rooftop that she and Mizuki first made that promise so many events ago.
水木、今日ずっと緊張してたの。この後、どんな話をされるのかわからないけど、話すって決心してくれて。嬉しい。ちゃんと受け止めたいな。
She hears footsteps and assumes that it must be Mizuki, but instead 3 boys emerge from the staircase. It's all about to go to shit, isn't it? Anna stays off to the side and out of their business, but can still overhear them clearly, her ears perking up when they start talking about Mizuki. And then they notice Anna and call out to her, asking if she's good friends with Mizuki before proceeding to say this.
そうなんだ。あ、じゃあ君も男だったりする感じ？
は？
おい、やめろって。なんだよ、冗談だろ。ごめんね。
何それ。冗談って。全然笑えないんだけど。
いや、だから悪かったって。君は普通に女の子だって思って。
どういう意味？
え？
私は普通にって。
おい、もしかしてこの子マジで知らな。だからやめろって言っただろ。でも長い付き合いって言うなら知ってるって思うだろ普通。あいつだって別に隠してねえじゃん。
え？冗談じゃない。じゃあ話したいことって。
あ
は。
And there it is. Mizuki's worst nightmare has come to fruition. Her chance to come out on her own terms snatched away at the very last second. Her friend unintentionally staring at her with the same expression that she's seen so many times before. The happy memories of the time she spent with Nightcord literally flash before Mizuki's eyes as reality comes crashing down around her. And despite all of the progress she's made, and despite how strong she had been all day, Mizuki's agency being ripped away from her in her most vulnerable moment breaks her, and her first response is of course to run. Enna chases after Mizuki, desperately calling out to her. She manages to cut Mizuki off and make her stop running. Enna tries to formulate a sentence, but she is still recovering from the shock of everything, and doesn't know exactly what she should say yet. And this is going to be another long clip, but I just want to let the story play out from here.
さっきエナはただびっくりしただけで、それ以外の気持ちは全然ないんだって分かってる。本当は全部分かってるんだ。水木。でもどうしてもダメなんだ。エナはすごく優しいから、きっと明日からも何もなかったみたいに話してくれる。奏も真冬もきっとそうだったんだっていうだけで当たり前みたいにいつもみたいに作業して、次の日もみんなはずっと変わらないってそう思わせてくれるんだって。それはただのみんなの優しさで、本当は温かくてきっとすごくいいもので、でも僕はその優しさがみんなの中に生まれちゃうことがどうしようもなく嫌なんだ。そんなこと。ごめん。ずっと話せなくて。ごめん。向き合えなくて。ごめん。水木！私はなんで。自業自得だな。逃げ続けて、いっそ誰か話してくれって思ってたんだから。願い通りになったじゃないか。ああ、消えたいな。
And that's how the story ends. Before reading Chapter 8, the game itself actually gave a warning that after reading it, Mizuki would no longer show up in the overworld. Once read, she would only show up beside the lake in the Sekai and say this.
もっと早く言えてれば何か違ったのかな。そんなわけないか。
The afterlife for this event also differed from the norm. Without any introduction, Nightcord perform Give Me Your Night, and they noticeably aren't wearing the event outfits, but instead their default unit outfits. This performance is a dream, and Mizuki is saying goodbye to her time with Nightcord. Once the song ends, the other girls disappear one by one, leaving Mizuki all alone. And she says this.
バカだな。もうみんなとは歌えないのに。
Guys, I'm losing my mind. Mizuki's 2025 birthday live just directly referenced this after live.
みずき、どうしたの？なんでもないよ。なんでもないんだけど。やっぱり、みんなで歌うの、いいなって。
My heart, man. My heart. This event didn't have an after talk either, which I found a bit disappointing since I would have loved to hear more of Sato Hina's thoughts on this event. But luckily we did get a tweet from her, which reads, I crammed every emotion that I could muster into the recording booth and at the studio. It was so painful to the point that I didn't even understand why I was sad anymore. I cried after the recording session too. Please make sure you check out the event story. And then she tweeted again after the event ended. What does it mean to be normal anyways? There are times when even the thought, I want to live as myself, feels as though it's wrong. Not everything in life always has a correct answer, so it's difficult. I will continue to face Mizuki's feelings head on, respectfully and sincerely. Thank you for the event. Sato Hina's voice performance for Mizuki has always been great, but she really went above and beyond for this event, and in the next one as well. Anna's voice actor too, Suzuki Minori, really did an amazing job. Props all round to the voice actors. Another thing I want to mention is that the same day this event was released, Colorful Palette also dropped 3 new alt vocals. And wow, would you look at that? All 3 of them are Mizuki related. Dropping Mizuki's alt vocal of Inochi Bakari here is so very intentional. Just look at some of the lyrics. I also love that the song using Boku makes it fit Mizuki even more. And if you want what's probably the most bizarre fact about this event, its original release date was supposed to be the 11th of October, which is National Coming Out Day. People started pointing this out, but then the event was delayed due to production issues and instead released on the 12th. So this either means that A, it's all just one massive coincidence, B, they didn't realize it was coming out day and decided to change the date last minute because having your trans character get outed on National Coming Out Day isn't a very good look, or C, Colorful Palette were playing 4D chess and the date originally being coming out day before being changed ties in with how Mizuki had her chance to come out taken away from her at the last minute. Am I even making sense anymore? What am I talking about? Reading this event for the first time was an experience, because the whole time you're reading, you know that this image is going to pop up eventually. So the whole time it's just looming, and you know that everything is going to go horribly wrong for Mizuki. And when we do eventually get to that point in the story, it's made completely clear just how much this moment hurt Mizuki. Even though we, as the reader, know that Nightcod would never reject Mizuki or treat her any differently, to Mizuki, this felt like the end of the world. In this single moment, Mizuki has convinced herself that everything is over and that she's lost the one place that she felt she belonged. And the cards in the event song reflect this. And this feeling like the end of the world to Mizuki is made even more clear when you consider Nightcod's cover of Heat Up Normal, a song that's literally about the end of the world. I have a whole video on this song, but when I made that video, this event didn't exist yet. I had no idea what was coming. So if I were to analyze that 3D MV again today, I would definitely mention how much it foreshadows Mizu 5. Something that I think this event does really well is putting into words Mizuki's fear of being treated differently once she comes out. While I'm not trans, I do belong to a different letter in the acronym, so I could still partially relate to Mizuki's dilemma in this event. If you'd like to see reactions to this event from trans and non-binary people, as well as a bunch of other genderqueer identities, I recommend checking out this video by Missed Combos with Laura Nizar. It's really well made and shows a ton of responses from a whole variety of different people. Okay, now we can move on to the card set for this event. The main motif for this card set are white roses. White roses symbolize purity and respect, and in romantic contexts, they represent an everlasting love, which makes them a very popular choice at weddings. However, since these roses are white, they are also a common choice at funerals. When used in a funeral setting, white roses symbolize remembrance and also reflect the possibility of new beginnings and healing. Why am I talking about funerals all of a sudden? Well, let's take a look at Mizuki's card. The first thing you may notice about this card is the location, and that's because it's the same room as her card in the secret dressing room gacha. But just as it was foreshadowed in ID Smile's 2D MV, the room is now dark and in ruins. The mirror smashed and the mannequins bare. The hazy colouring and Mizuki's posture make it look as though she's been standing there for a very long time, and that dust has collected all around her. The dark and creepy lighting also makes it look like it's straight out of a horror game. The location isn't the only connection to the secret dressing room either, as what Mizuki's wearing is the completed version of that same dress. Another thing worth mentioning is that this outfit is actually the first time Mizuki has worn a fully fledged dress in one of her focus events. In Secret Distance, Mizuki and her dress were still just a bud, and she had been working towards the moment in which she could finally come out to her friends and bloom into her true self. Except nothing went to plan, and instead the bud has bloomed into this torn and ruined dress. Red can be seen through the tears in the skirt and on the back, as if Mizuki is wounded and bleeding. A blindfold adorns her face and not only covers her eyes, but her ears as well, meaning Mizuki has completely shut herself away in her own mind. She doesn't want to hear or see reality anymore. She wants nothing to do with it, as she believes that everything is over for her. Atop her head is a white rose that is stained red, the broken mirror implying that Mizuki can't bear to look at herself and what this dress has become. The bare mannequins around Mizuki likely symbolize how Mizuki feels naked now, her secret exposed to Ena. These mannequins are also filled with roses. This ribbon at the forefront of the card is on the brink of tearing, but its framing could also imply a much more dark intention. Look at Mizuki's posture for a moment. Back straight, arms limp by her sides, and her feet not visible. If you don't get it because I'm being vague on purpose here, let me just edit one thing into this image. Yeah, pretty crazy imagery to put into your 4+ rated game with Miku's face on it. I honestly didn't see the card in this way at first and thought it was a bit much, but as I was working on this script, there was a special live stream in which the art director revealed the card creation process, and they showed us this draft of Kanade's Bloomfest card. So yeah, after seeing this, I don't actually think the hanged interpretation is that far-fetched anymore. It may not be meant in a literal sense though, and more like the death of Mizuki's identity. Notice how there isn't a hint of pink on this card. The only prominent color is red. The room has been stripped of everything that makes Mizuki. I've also seen a theory pointing out that the other mannequins represent chess pieces and Mizuki is in checkmate, meaning she is cornered with nowhere left to run. It's not all just doom and gloom though, since this ribbon at the front is torn but still just barely holding on. Mizuki hasn't given up completely yet. And on the right here, we can see one of the mannequins is facing Mizuki, the soft lighting behind it making it look as though it's calling out to her, trying to tell her that everything is okay. Which brings us to Ena. In contrast to Mizuki's card, the background is stark white, representing her pure and honest desire to help Mizuki. White roses float around her as she clutches a red ribbon. However, this ribbon has submerged itself beneath the water and Ena can't follow it any further. A rose that's been stained red rests beside it, indicating that this ribbon leads to wherever Mizuki has gone. This card directly parallels Mizuki's initial 3-star. Ena has now seen that other side of Mizuki and desperately wants to reach her and tell her that it's okay, but she can't get there. Since Mizuki ran away to the Sekai, this water could be like the lake that's in the empty Sekai. In Nightcord's first World Link event, Meiko explains that only the owners of the memories within the lake are able to pull that object out of it. So if we apply that same concept here, only Mizuki herself is able to pull herself out of this lake, out of her own negative thoughts. And this is why I brought up Mizuki's first World Link card earlier, because it also pairs quite well with this Ena card. And as Ena described her painting, she's already latched onto what it is that she wants and is determined not to let it go. She is determined not to let Mizuki go. As for this red ribbon, you probably noticed that there isn't a red ribbon in sight on Mizuki's card, only this white one that's about to tear. Well, that's because I think Mizuki herself is what's at the end of the ribbon. The only pops of red are the ones on her outfit, and she has a red line running up the back of one of her stockings. So if this red is supposed to represent Mizuki's pain, then the redness of Ena's ribbon represents how close she is to Mizuki. Ena knows full well what's troubling Mizuki and is the closest to reaching her, so the ribbon on her card is blood red. Mafuyu is aware that Mizuki is hurting, but doesn't know the exact reason why, so her ribbon is only slightly red, and then Kaito has no idea what's going on and only recently inserted himself into all of this, so his ribbon is completely white. Speaking of Kaito, let's move on to his card. Now, I'll be completely honest here, I don't really understand what's going on with Kaito's card, but if I had to guess, it would be that Kaito feels guilty that he wasn't able to help Mizuki, and that he's realized his advice might have been a bit too harsh. Nightcord Kaito's whole thing is that he wants to push the girls to face their troubles head on, and not suppress their emotions. And in this case, Mizuki did just that, but it all came crumbling down anyways, exactly how Meiko had warned. Kaito only has a few red rose petals on this card, and a torn ribbon, indicating just how little he actually knows about Mizuki. I also really love Kaito's outfit. From the front, it looks like a normal suit, but then from the back, it looks like a dress. Slay. Next we have Mafuyu. Now Mafuyu has no idea what's gone down on the rooftop, but she is still Mizuki's friend and knows that she has been hurting. This umbrella represents Mizuki and the time that she held out a helping hand to Mafuyu. Mizuki is the reason that Mafuyu decided to escape from her suffocating home, and the reason that she was able to speak with her dad. Mafuyu is seen glancing over at the umbrella, sad that her friend is no longer there beside her. Lastly, we have Kanade, who also has no idea what has happened, but she is seen cradling a very important bow. This bow is the one from Mizuki's Secret Distance card, and why Kanade has this bow, I have no idea. But maybe Kanade found it discarded on the ground and has picked it up, and she looks down at it, wondering what has happened to her friend for her to discard such an important object. I'm sure I've missed a whole bunch of stuff in these cards, so if you have anything else you'd like to add, or if you interpret them differently, then please feel free to drop a comment about it. I'd love to read other people's opinions on these cards. Also, Mizu 6 dropped while I was working on this, and it also continues on from this card, so don't worry guys, she escaped that dark and dusty room. And now we've finally made it to the song, Bake no Hana. This was Nakiso's comment when the event was first revealed. I think that there are some realities that we simply have no control over. Please prepare yourself. Yeah, that's probably the most ominous producer comment we've gotten to date. And this event was revealed at a live event to an audience full of people. Like, imagine being there. When I first saw this trailer, I immediately knew that this song was not going to stay as innocent as it sounds. This is Nakiso we're talking about here after all. The flowers shown in this trailer are the same ones on the song jacket. These are impatiens, and they're actually one of Mizuki's birth flowers. In flower language, they can mean don't touch me, impatience, and to open up one's heart. The meaning of don't touch me originates from the fact this flower's seed pods will burst open from the slightest touch. I was curious, so I looked this up and they really do just explode. Another fun fact about impatiens is that the flowers are protantric, which means that the male parts of the flower mature before the female ones. So essentially, the flower starts off male before becoming female later on in life. And sure, you could just call this a coincidence, but either way, they still picked a trans flower to represent the event where Mizuki is outed. I also like how both the meanings of don't touch me and open up one's heart can apply here. Mizuki wanted to open up her heart, but because nothing went to plan, Mizuki runs away and no longer wants anyone to be able to touch or look at her. Before I get into anything else, first let's talk about the song's title, because there's a lot going on here. Bake no Hana is likely a play on the phrase Bake no Kawa, which means to expose one's true nature and is similar to the English phrase a wolf in sheep's clothing. The phrase is made up of two words, bake and kawa. Bake means to take on a different form or to disguise oneself as something, while kawa means skin. So bake no hana is this phrase, but the word skin has been changed to hana, which means flower. In other words, this flower has disguised itself to look like all the others, but now its true colors have been exposed. The bake part is also used in another word, bakemono, which means monster. And this is how we get the translation monstrous flower, which is what's used on Nakiso's upload of the song. So I imagine that he approved it in some way. The song's not out yet on the English server of Proseka, so it'll be interesting to see which translation they go with. I feel like they're just gonna write Bake no Hana though. However, as you can see, this translation loses a lot of nuance that the Japanese title has, and that is simply due to the fact that it's kind of impossible to retain all of the nuances in English without the title just becoming a paragraph. You might notice that my translation of the song differs a bit from the semi-official one on Nakiso's channel, and that's just because I interpret some of the lines differently. Let's start with the Vocaloid version of the song. This version is sung by Miku, and I just have to say that I adore the way she is tuned here. She just sounds so meek and cute, but nervous at the same time. Like, it's such a unique sound for Miku. This MV is illustrated by Samejima Nurie, who draws for a lot of Nakiso's other songs. We see that this girl is surrounded by sunflowers, all of them facing towards her. Her dress is super frilly and ribbons are wrapped around her legs, perhaps meaning that she isn't able to escape. Her expression is distressed and her hands appear to be halfway to making a heart shape, but she doesn't have the confidence to complete it. Once we reach the final chorus, we become aware of why this girl looks so uncomfortable, as the sunflowers turn to face us, revealing that each one of them is adorned with a judgmental eye. The girl finally smiles, as if saying to us, "See, how do you like it?" In flower language, sunflowers mean, "I only have eyes for you," meaning that no matter where this girl goes, the flowers are always watching her, always judging her. Next, let's look at Proseka's 2D MV. This MV is illustrated by Tsumagure Araki, who you may already know from a couple of Azari's songs. And the video itself is put together by Omu. The MV starts with a blinking effect as branches begin to crawl across the screen. Everything is dyed an ominous red as a huge eyeball appears, as well as a flower that blooms into more eyes. Each and every one of them glancing around, searching for a target. In this segment, Night Chord each glare at the camera as they say their line. Mizuki has been stared at and mocked countless times throughout her life, and that is what this look is referring to. She's just being herself, and yet it's almost always been met with shock, disgust, or judgment. And that's why Mizuki reacted so strongly to the look of surprise Enna gave her. Even if Enna did it unconsciously and without any ill intent, it's still a look that Mizuki has been given many other times, and seeing such a precious friend look at her that way hurt Mizuki immensely. This part is really cool because the song literally slips out of sync as Enna sings her line here. It's just so unnerving, I love it. Now these lines are pretty straightforward, but Mizuki's can be interpreted in two different ways. That Mizuki has broken the friendship that Night Court once had, and also that Mizuki herself has broken. A weak sorry being the only thing that she can say. As we reach the chorus, the screen continues to blink and Kanade glares at the camera. We get the name drop of the title, Mizuki feeling as though, now that her secret has been exposed, she isn't seen as a regular beautiful flower anymore, but instead a monstrous one. I like how it's Enna who gets this line, because just as Mizuki wasn't able to say anything and can't erase the truth, Enna also found herself unable to say anything when she finally managed to catch up to Mizuki. And after this moment, both of their makeup was no doubt a mess. Tanabe Rui's voice is so stunning here. I also think Mafuyu singing this line fits her too, since in her mother's eyes, she also bloomed into an undesired form. Finally, we get Mizuki saying the last line of the chorus, definitively stating that she can't go back anymore. Once a secret has been exposed, it can no longer be taken back. And thus, Mizuki has convinced herself that Night Court can no longer go back to being the friend group that it once was. Also, Mizuki is literally standing in the closet in this MV, her being the only one behind the door and not letting anyone else in. We get another cool sequence with the eye flowers, and then Kaito appears. And Mizuki declares that everyone should just disappear, linking back to when she had the same thought on the rooftop in My Footprints Your Destination. But as we already know, Mizuki doesn't actually want her friends to leave her, and that honest wish leaks through here as well. This is probably my favourite part of the song. Kanade and Mafuyu almost sound ethereal as they sing this line together, the music swelling into a hopeful tone before quickly distorting and crashing back down again as the lyric Bake no Hana is said. Perfectly summing up what reading the event story felt like. Enna and Kaito get the same line here, but then Mizuki takes over, absolutely belting this line here. Sato Hina can sing so well, dude. I also love how much this version contrasts Miku's. In Miku's version, she sounds meek and scared, but here when Mizuki sings, you can feel the raw emotion in her voice. Minaide changes to Miraide, and Mizuki states that if she's never going to be understood, if society doesn't start being more accepting of trans identities, then she'll wither away right here. And well, these last few lines are pretty self-explanatory. Tired of the judgment, tired of everything, Mizuki gives up, no longer seeing the point in fighting anymore and accepting the punishment for being born in a way that dares differ from the norm. And then the beat just goes absolutely crazy, almost sounding like a machine gun as it gets faster and louder, mimicking a panic attack as it feels as though there's no escape. It's the bad end, basically. The unsettling visuals continue before the eye closes, and we're left with an abrupt silence. And the song is 1 minute 59 seconds long. The 25th hour is 1 minute away from being over. I think it should be pretty obvious that I really like this song, and it's just because everything about it fits the event and the vibe perfectly. It's a short song, but it doesn't need to be any longer to get the point across. And also just removing the context of everything, it still absolutely bangs. Another thing is that throughout the entire song, apart from that one line Kanade and Mafuyu sing together, the only other person that the girls sing with is Kaito. At no moment in the song do they all sing together, reinforcing the fact that Mizuki thinks they won't be able to sing together again. The use of Kaito here is cool too, since he is Meiko's counterpart. ID Smile and Lower were both Meiko, but here where everything goes wrong, it's Kaito. Like, I'm not saying it was Kaito's fault or anything, but just that he's used like symbolically here as the inverse of Meiko. Baka no Hana doesn't have a 3D MV, is what I would have said, but it was actually performed in Nightcord's Connect Live with the virtual singers. And holy crap, this MV. When I first saw it, I was just staring at the screen in pure shock at what I was witnessing. Due to the nature of the event, I figured Baka no Hana would never get choreo, but I am so glad I was proven wrong. Since this was performed in a Connect Live, I unfortunately can't show any footage, but I do have some screenshots. The song starts immediately with what looks like a demon summoning ritual. Nightcord continue to circle Mizuki as they sing the first verse, and this choreo is very reminiscent of the children's game Kagome Kagome. And it's a pretty harmless game if you don't consider the many disturbing interpretations of the song that's sung. This same game can be seen in Mind Brand's 3D MV, as it is directly referenced in the lyrics. Once they get to Mizuki's line, she does this really cool move where she kicks her heel out all cutely before contorting her body in this really unnatural movement. This next part is also really well done as Nightcord all step into line and do synchronized movements, but just as the lyrics say, Mizuki starts slipping and her movements fall out of sync with the others. She rushes forwards and apologizes before running back towards the back of the stage. The rest of Nightcord sing the chorus as Mizuki stays behind them, essentially having a breakdown. And this is reminiscent of ID Smile's 3D MV in the worst way. In that MV, Mizuki is still dancing the choreo, but just apart from the others. But here, she isn't even paying attention to what the others are doing. She tries to recover and come back to the foreground, but the rest of Nightcord hold out their hands in a stop motion, and Mizuki cowers away from them. And then they all form a flower with Mizuki in the middle as she says she can no longer return to being a bud. The lighting is so ominous during the instrumental break, and then when Mizuki says everyone should just disappear, the rest of Nightcord disappear one by one. Mafuyu, Kanade, Enna, then Kaito. And then as Mizuki begs them to stay, she reaches forwards, the screen blinking to reveal her face behind the blindfold. Nightcord come forwards and it looks as though they're finally going to dance together, but Mizuki still can't bring herself to and continues to cower away from them. They form another monstrous flower and then Mizuki steps forwards, uttering the final lines of the song as the rest of Nightcord absolutely eat up the choreo behind her. Mizuki is seen struggling, wiping at what are supposedly tears as the song unrelentingly continues. And then right at the end, Nightcord steps towards her and Mizuki falls to the floor, her head ominously going limp right as the performance ends. Yeah, the posing on that card was definitely intentional. I think the choreo for this song is perfect, and I love that they didn't shy away from making it just as harsh as I'd imagined it would be. Like, Nightcord obviously aren't the ones that rejected and couldn't understand Mizuki, but in this MV they take the place of those people, and like, represent them. And don't worry, they sung Yoka like a couple songs after this one. Harmony has been restored. Lastly, I don't usually talk about the beat maps themselves, but the master chart for Baka no Hana has a total note count of 1003. Mizuki being the 1, and Mafuyu, Kanade, and Enna being the 3, Mizuki no longer being alongside them. And this goes even deeper as it references ID Smile's master chart, which reaches the combo of 1003 right here. Yep, the line where Mizuki is questioning whether things will be able to continue as they are if she comes out. And in ID Smile's case, the song continues from this point, but Baka no Hana doesn't. The green long note instead dissipating into nothing as the song ends. The bad end. And speaking of endings, we've finally reached the end of this video. This one was a lot of work to put together, so I hope that my ramblings were coherent. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on the event, or the song, or anything else. I'd love to hear other people's opinions. By the way, if you're someone who doesn't follow Proseka but somehow got this far into the video, in the event after this one, Mizuki and Enna talk it out, and Mizuki is doing much better now, so don't worry. And although I personally would have preferred to see Mizuki come out on her own terms and have it be a wholesome moment, getting to see Kanade hug Mizuki after everything was said and done made all of the angst worth it. I know that Path of Thorns is going to be happening on the English server soon, so best of luck to any of you that are planning to pull or tier. My next deep dive video will be on Nihil-san and its related event, but after that I don't have anything planned yet, so feel free to let me know which events you'd like to see a deep dive on. It doesn't have to just be Nightcord either, I do read the other unit stories too. One to Show are my second favourite. But yeah, I think that's everything now. I won't keep inflating the runtime of this already stupidly long video, and instead I'm going to leave you with this beautiful rendition of Keitai Renwa that I found while I was looking stuff up for this video. Bye! Honestly, my favorite meme to come out of this event is Mafuyu eating that squid without a care in the world.